Remake Rewind.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Remake Rewind. I'm Mike, as always. With me, I've got my buddy Alex. How you doing, man?
Hey, man, I'm doing good.
Hey, this is a special episode of the pod. I don't know if you know this.
I don't know. What's going on?
It's the 5th anniversary of the pod, man.
Holy shit.
I know you haven't been on it the whole time, but, you know, it's still a big anniversary for a show.
You know, I show up to the office and I talk my little talky talk for 45 minutes and I cash my check. I did not realize that we were at 5 years.
Yeah, 5 years. 5 years, and I stopped numbering the episodes when, because we kind of did it like a little reboot of the podcast when you joined on. So I changed the naming structure, but, you know, we're like...
You mean a remake?
Yeah. We're like 110, 115 episodes in as well. So it's not a small feat. Like, by no means are we a super, super popular podcast, but, you know, I think, you know, the fact that anybody's listening still this far out is really amazing. So thank you for our listeners who've kept us going and kept us on the air and on the intertubes, on the interwebs.
In case it wasn't clear, I was doing a little bit of joking around just then. We don't have an office. There's no checks for sure. But I was looking through the episodes that we've recorded together up to this point. And yeah, I had that same feeling, man. I was like, holy shit, this is a lot of episodes. That's pretty cool. Yeah,
I'm really excited and really, really thankful because this is just, you know, there's a lot of people screaming onto the internet, and just the fact that anybody listens is pretty cool. And this is something I enjoy doing. Like, I'm not a very creative person. I can't draw. I'm not musically inclined. But it gives me a creative outlet to talk about something that I love. And I like doing all the thumbnails and the teasers and stuff. And that's where I get to be creative. So this is a really good outlet. So I just want to thank our fans for letting us have this vehicle to talk about movies and stuff that we love.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
So.
Thank you.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Thank you, everybody. And thank you, Mike, for inviting me to be a part of it.
Hey, no problem, bud. What we're going to do this time around is we've talked about a lot of movies. We've said whether or not they should have been remade. We've made these bold proclamations on individual movies, but we haven't made any bold proclamations as to the movie industry in general. We haven't really ranked anything or said, you know, these are what you should strive to be, remakes and reboots to the movie studios. So what we thought we would do is a topic episode with kind of a countdown best of list. So Alex and I have both selected our 3 top remakes or reboots ever made, and we're going to talk about them. We're going to kind of go 3, 2, 1, alternate going, and we've got a few honorable mentions because it's really hard for movie people like us to narrow anything down to a favorite, let alone 3. So
it's very hard.
It's very tricky. So with that being said, Alex, can you give me your number 3?
Yeah, you know, it was hard to pick. It's hard to pick movies. It's hard to pick 3. And then it's also hard to put them in any sort of order. But my number 3 is a movie that I watched far too young. And I've watched every few years since then. And I think I'm actually due for a new watch. But it's a movie that I appreciated as an adolescent because of how visceral it is. And just being able to participate in conversations about the iconography and the legend of this movie. And as I've gotten older, I've been able to appreciate it more as a film and the director behind it, Brian De Palma. And I appreciate it as a remake as well. And that is Scarface.
Scarface. That was like our 6th or 7th episode of
Ever,
Remake
right?
Rewind.
You and I didn't talk about it.
No. Yeah, this was year 1 of the pod. Like, this was like 2 or 3 months in.
We should do it. We're due for recovering it.
They've been making another one for years. It's been in like pre-production and development hell for a long time. But the Coen brothers wrote a script. I don't think they were going to direct it, but they wrote it, and it's going to have Diego Luna. So like, I've been waiting for that to get going, and I even saw an update like 6 months ago saying, yeah, this is still definitely happening. So
I think what we do is we cover the original one and the De Palma, and then when the new movie comes out, we'll do De Palma and the new one.
Oof. See, that's funny. I don't disagree with you.
It's going to be 2 years. Like, we haven't heard anything about it.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you that this is an iconic movie, and, you know, a lot of people watched it when they were far too young. I remember in middle school, everybody had the little Scarface T-shirts where it has like the red letters and then like the white and red background with Tony Montana in front of it.
Yeah, white and black.
I didn't watch the movie until the podcast. So I came into it way later as an adult. Yeah. Like I'd seen clips. Like it's one of those movies that you don't necessarily have to see. Like I didn't see Alien. I've seen Aliens in some of the sequels, but I didn't see the first Alien movie until I was in my 20s as well. Because it's one of those things that's been spoofed or talked about so much that you kind of feel like you've seen it already. Yeah. Scarface was like that for me. So I was a little underwhelmed by it, but I can see why people love that movie.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird movie. I think that it's hurt by the saturation point that it's reached, you know, and if you can just watch it in as much of a vacuum as possible, it's much more enjoyable. And like, that's why it works if you're a teenager, but, it's, you know, it's talked about in so many, it's spoofed in so many things as, it's like for a while, I think like every mainstream rapper had it as part of their thing, or it was at least a stereotype that every rapper had it or whatever. But yeah, it loses a lot of its, you know, relevance. But I think that De Palma, forgive me, I don't have the writer's name because I don't think De Palma wrote it.
But look it up for you while you talk about your feelings.
Yeah, no, I just think that they updated the story in a really interesting way and made it relevant again. And they also updated the genre. You know, they took it to a new place.
Oliver Stone wrote it.
Oh, no shit. Well, I feel silly. There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just think they took it to another level.
I mean, like, you can't argue it's iconic and, you know, almost 40 years later. Like, we just covered the Home Alone movies, and the newer one, the 2021, has them making fun of the movie too. So it's still being spoofed and parodied and whatnot in kids' movies.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, I think part of that, it leads me to my next point. I think that it is almost a perfect example of that genre. Like, it is a rise and fall movie, even more so than being a gangster movie. You know, you look at something like Wolf of Wall Street, it's a rise and fall movie. It's doing the exact same thing. And those types of stories are like endlessly fascinating, and there's tons of them because it's such a successful archetype of story. But this is just such a good example of it that it's endured through the decades.
Well, what I like about these type of movies, and even this one, like, Tony Montana is a terrible person from beginning to end. Like, he is not a good dude.
Yeah, at the beginning of the movie, decades before Sopranos or Breaking Bad or anything.
Exactly. But all of these movies, whether, you know, or TV shows, is like, I was actually just talking about Breaking Bad again with my wife, Katrina, just the other day. And it's like,
oh yeah, Katrina.
Even at the end of the episode or the end of the series where Walter White has just become the worst person in the world, you still want to see him get away with it.
Yeah. Tony Soprano too.
And same thing with Tony Montana. Like, you kind of hope, and like, they made a video game in like 2001, 2002 where Tony Montana actually survived the events of the movie. But like, even though you know he's getting like stormed and you know he's going to die, like, a little bit of you wants him to somehow get out of that like raid on his compound at the end of the movie. So
yeah, and just to put a final point on this, because I know we want to move on. I think that the original movie did not persevere through the years the way that the remake did.
No, absolutely not.
And I think that's what makes it one of the best remakes of all time.
Yeah, I agree. So what's really funny is, for me, I got my top 1 and top 2, and we haven't discussed our list. So these are coming to surprise us as we're going through. We may have some that match. We may not. Who knows? I picked my number 1 like that right away. I knew exactly what it was going to be. Yeah. My number 2 took a little bit, but like, it came to me pretty fast. Number 3 was the one that really, really struggled. And I have 2 on my list right now that I have, and I haven't decided. So I have to make the decision right now on air, and I'm going with Mad Max Fury Road.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I loved those movies as a kid.
Arguably not a remake.
It's a reboot, and it kind of just reinvigorated this, 30-year franchise. It was, 20, almost 30-year gap between the movies. And these were movies that, like, every time they came on TV, my dad would watch them. And it was one of the few things that my dad liked that I also liked. And then you look at what a technical marvel Mad Max Fury Road is. Like, that's one of the most ambitious movies ever made. Yeah. One of the most dangerous movies ever made. and it looks beautiful in an age of CGI. Having that movie be 99% practical effects and still be just amazing. I remember when they announced it and they said it's going to be a 2-hour car chase, and I'm like, that's either going to be the most amazing thing in the world or it's going to be the worst thing in the world.
And it was amazing.
And then I saw the first trailer for it with the guy on the guitar just on the front of the big rig, and I was just like, holy shit. And then having Tom Hardy and Charlize Theron on there, and it's just like, I was sold. I saw that movie like 5 times in theaters. And
yeah.
I think that was 2015. Yeah, I saw it like 5 times, and this was before Movie Pass, before ANC Stubs. Like, I paid to see this movie like 5 times, and I still watch it like every year, and it like reinvigorated that franchise. We're getting a Furiosa prequel movie with Anya Taylor-Joy as young Furiosa.
Someday.
That's fine. Well, no, it's like supposed to start shooting this year.
All right.
So,
I think
but yeah,
they were supposed to start shooting a while ago too.
Yeah. But yeah, George Miller just came back with a vengeance. And I just think it's one of the most innovative movies we've had. And we haven't had anything else like that since it came out.
Yeah. Yeah, it's incredible. I think I saw it 3 or 4 times in the theater. I kind of want to watch it tonight. Like, it's one of those movies that you can just like catch any part of it and you're in for the whole movie.
Absolutely.
Once it's on, you can't stop watching it.
But yeah, Fury Road,
man. Good pick.
Fucking great.
Yeah.
All right, what's your number 2, man?
My number 2 is True Grit.
Ooh, so we have some overlap.
Uh-oh.
But that one is not my number 2. Spoiler alert.
Interesting. All right, well, maybe we can get more into it when you talk about it later. But I feel like it's kind of similar to Scarface. It's a movie that took the source material and just elevated it to another level. You know, like many levels above, probably.
I agree.
I think it just took the story so much more seriously. You know,
what I love about it is it's like 99% the same dialogue. Like they added like that hanging scene, and then they added, you know, a couple additional scenes with Matt Damon's character, who I can't remember the character's name.
French something, right?
But it's like 99% the same. And all they did is they took it more seriously, and they took a lot of the scenes that took place in the daytime in the original John Wayne version and put it at night, and it just completely changed the tone of the movie. And it's just... It made me love Westerns. I didn't like Westerns before watching that movie.
Yeah, I think that a big part of it too, no shade to the John Wayne version, but I think that visual storytelling, Hollywood visual storytelling has come a long way since then. And the Coen brothers are, you know, top of the game. They're
Masters.
So good at it. They're such good filmmakers. And they're able to just make it a more compelling experience. Simply because it's being told through their lens from their voice.
Yeah. Well, and what I think, you know, we covered this also year 1 before your time, but I'd be happy to go back and do this one again.
I would do that this year, yeah.
The opening of the John Wayne one has this like hokey kind of like country song, like "Here in the mountains," and then you just have like just a horrendously dark story, and then you take the Cogburn, played by Jeff Bridges, and he just has that marble mush mouth, but he just seems so much dirtier and grungier. And when I think of the word grit, and I think the two different ones, like the original movie looks like it was built on a soundstage. They're wearing really, you know, nice, tight, you know, brightly colored clothing to an extent. Like it's not brightly colored, but like it's just a brighter movie. And then you just see Jeff Bridges is dirty and disgusting and just
you could smell him through the
drunk. And it's so good. Good pick, man.
True grimdark is what they should have called it.
True grimdark.
All right, what's your number 2?
So my number 2, I think could be a number 1 as well. I was torn between this, but the reason I ended up picking True Grit as my number 1 is it made me take a genre that I hated. Like I never liked Westerns. And it made me like Westerns, and then we went on to do like 3:10 to Yuma. We also did Magnificent Seven before your time, and I actually really enjoyed those. And prior to watching True Grit, I probably wouldn't have. So that's why I made it my number 1. So my number 2 was one that you and I have talked about with one of our special guests, Jade from AFI. The Thing.
That's my number one.
That's your number one. That's so funny.
That's awesome.
But The Thing is just a fantastic movie from beginning to end. There's not a wasted frame in the movie. Yeah. And the fact that for almost 40 years later, we're still talking about the ending. And, John Carpenter, Kurt Russell have all said their pieces on it. Keith David has said their pieces on it as to whether or not, there are things at the end. And people are still talking about it 40 years later. And Stan Winston's effects, just everything about the movie is perfect.
Yeah, it really feels like it was ahead of its time, and also something that has been referenced, similar to Scarface, right? It's been referenced so much throughout popular culture still to this day. Like even Hateful Eight, Tarantino's second to last movie, feels like it's got a lot of moments that are just taken from The Thing.
Yeah.
People being locked in a room and not knowing who's going to kill who.
Well, and it's just, going back to it and watching it now, like, sure, the practical effects aren't as good as, like, practical effects done today, but just the nature of having this, and it's so weird and bizarre, and these creature designs are just out of this world, and things that, like, a normal person doesn't even think about or fathom, and they were able to, one, conceptualize it, two, do it practically with the budget that they had, and to the point where it's still, most of those effects still stand up today as being a lot of people will say this is one of the best special effects movies of all time, plus best sci-fi movie of all time, plus the best horror film of all time. Like, that movie is in all of those conversations. And it was a sleeper hit. Like, the movie bombed when it came out. Like, it would have been really easy for this movie to be buried and none of us to have ever watched it. But just your movie fans like us just talking about it and talking about it and talking about it for decades, and then it getting put on TV and HBO, Showtime, wherever you end up seeing it. And now it's just one of those movies that
Hulu, Tubi.
Yeah.
Just keep on naming things. Peacock.
Quibi.
Paramount Plus. Probably not Disney.
Peacock.
Yeah, I mean, I think another thing that's really compelling about this movie, and like maybe this doesn't belong in this conversation because I don't think it makes it a great remake, but a compelling part of the story is that I feel like it's such a singular vision from John Carpenter. It's so clearly one artist's voice. And of course, there's so many other people that are involved with it. You mentioned Stan Winston, and Kurt Russell is his own thing. I'm not saying that it's, completely auteur project, but it feels so much like a Carpenter movie. Like, every frame of it is dripping with his style, and the fact that he made it on a low budget, and at the time that they made it, because it opened against E.T. or something, right?
Yeah,
like the fact that it came out at that time, and he just got to do whatever the fuck he wanted with it, and made it so violent and so disgusting, and doing the soundtrack too is just like so impressive. It adds to the legend of the movie. That
would never happen to, like you mentioned, it opening up against a blockbuster. Like, you'll have, like, at one point, Batman v Superman and Captain America Captain America Civil War, the two big movies about superheroes fighting each other, those were originally going to come out the same day, and Marvel and DC had to play chicken as to who was going to switch dates.
Yeah.
And they switched dates. Like, nowadays, you don't get these big movies opening against each other, and it is impressive that it did go up against E.T.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, like, the first thing that I think off the top of my head is in 2014, Transformers opened against Snowpiercer, Dark Side of the Moon or whatever, Dark of the Moon. And it was, like, very purposefully counter-programmed to that. It was, sci-fi action. But I feel like that doesn't really happen that often, these, like, interesting counter-programmings. And even Snowpiercer had Captain America in it, so I don't know if it really counts.
No, I agree. Well, and it's interesting. Like, it could be that this movie was put up against E.T. because they thought it was going to be a failure, and then they can use that as the reason. Because there was a movie that came out late last year that opened up against the same weekend as Spider-Man. And I'm like, the only reason you open up anything against Spider-Man is if it's not going to do well anyway, but it gives you a little asterisk that you can put on and be like, well, it opened against Spider-Man. What did you expect? But God, that movie's so good. So that was your number one.
Yeah, so we've covered everything now. Did I miss anything about True Grit that you wanted to cover?
Yeah, I mean, just the performances. Haley Steinfeld is so fantastic. That was like kind of my introduction to her as well, and she's obviously blown up afterwards with like the Pitch Perfect movies, and obviously she's in the MCU now. And
she's
then
Hawkeye, in case anybody is.
Yeah, exactly. And just Jeff Bridges. Who the fuck is Josh Bridges?
Josh Brolin's in it too, Thanos.
Yeah. Oh yeah, he's barely in it. And like this is one of the things, like I've always said that Josh Brolin is underrated. And like he's really started to become mainstream over the last few years, a lot of it because of him playing Thanos and being in Deadpool. But he used to just be these small roles in like movies like this, and just almost like an assassin coming in, just for a scene or two, killing it. And just he was just like an amazing supporting actor. Yeah. And now he's just like somebody you put in for a dynamic performance, you know, whether it's a villain or a hero or just somebody that needs to have gravitas and weight. And this was like before he was getting that recognition. So when I remember seeing him, and I was like, oh shit, Josh Brolin.
Yeah, it's that guy.
God, that movie's so good. It's just the tone.
So we should probably cover that this year.
Yeah, I would do that again. I think like what really sold me on that movie is there's a point where they go up to a cabin and they see like smoke coming out of it. They're like, oh, there's somebody in there. And they go in and like interrogate people to figure out where Josh Brolin's character is going to be. And the first movie, it happens during the daytime. And then in the second movie, it happens at night. And they like block up the chimney so like the smoke like fills up the cabin, and then it like smokes them out. And then they go in there and kind of like torture these people for information. And it had I think Domhnall Gleeson is in that, and this was like a period of time, like we covered a bunch of movies with Domhnall Gleeson like back to back to back, because he was in like everything for a while. He was in Dread, he was in that, and we did them like very close together. But it's just a fantastic movie.
Yeah,
just
it really is.
It made me like westerns. Like I don't think I would have enjoyed talking about 3:10 to Yuma with you if I hadn't watched that first.
Yeah. It's funny, when in our little text chat before the episode, I mentioned that I saw that we had watched 3:10 to Yuma, and I do not remember a single thing about it. I know that it happened, and I just like...
Ben Foster in that movie is just incredible.
Oh, yeah, he's like a piece of shit, right?
Yeah, he's the piece of shit in that movie. Who like?
Yeah, I remember something.
He was the right-hand man to...
right.
The Australian guy. Why can't I think of his name? The lead of the movie.
Ben Mendelsohn. Margot Robbie. Nicole Kidman.
Gladiator.
Russell Crowe.
Yes, thank you. Like he was Russell Crowe's like right-hand man, and then at the end he's the one who betrays him, and it's just like, you piece of shit. Yeah. And Ben Foster's so good, actually. Like we finished we'll transition. I think I mentioned this on the last episode that we finished 6 Feet Under, but it was like an early Ben Foster role, and he's just like, you start out loving that character. He's like, oh, this is a sweet dude, and then like he kind of gets like problematic and then kind of like abusive in his relationship psychologically, and you're just like, ooh, I don't like this guy, but I like Ben Foster. So that movie was just fantastic too. I think what we should do now is let's get into our other segment. What have you been up to, bud? And then maybe we can rapid fire some of our honorable mentions and do some quick conversations on those.
Get out of my head.
Yeah, buddy. What have you been up to, bud?
It's a little pregnant pause there. Yeah, man. I rewatched Mortal Kombat. Still a blast. It's fun. Really hope that they bring back Kano in some way.
I bet they do. Because they made the point at the end of that movie that like
death is like, another portal.
Death means nothing, bitch.
Yeah, and like Sub-Zero is obviously coming back as a noob Cybot. And I think they could make Kano into a bit of a cyborg, you know? Like really accentuate the fake eye, or the laser eye. Laser beam!
Metal plate. Yeah, give him that metal plate in his head like he has in the games. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, exactly. Who else died in that movie? It's weird that they would probably bring back Kano and Sub-Zero. I guess Goro. I think Goro, right?
You have to bring back Goro. He's such a crowd pleaser.
Yeah. But they're obviously not going to bring back the winged chick, and like Kung Lao I don't think will come back.
I bet Kung Lao comes back in a way, but he's like a
spirit.
Corrupted version.
Oh, yeah, there is that whole thing in like the later Mortal Kombat games, right? That would be interesting.
Yeah, because I think even Liu Kang kind of goes dark for a little bit too in the games.
I just want to know who's going to play Johnny Cage, man.
Yeah. I want John Cena and everything now after Peacemaker.
Yeah, for real. Do you really want to taste it?
Unskippable opening credits.
We watched it almost every single time. It's so good.
Me too.
I watched both the Kick-Ass movies this week.
Oh, I love those movies. Matthew Vaughn.
You know, the second one, I don't know. I feel like if you have a good memory or a fond memory of the second one, upon rewatch, it does not hold up.
I don't think it's as good as the first one, but
It's absolutely
I still
not.
enjoy it.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoy it the least amount that you can enjoy something. It's just fine, but it really like watching them back to back. I think I watched both of them in one night. I watched Kick-Ass over a few days, and I finished it, and then immediately watched 2. But watching them back to back like that, the second one like really does not hold up.
Yeah.
But yeah, fun.
Apparently, we're getting a reboot of that soon. Like the rights are going to expire because
That's
Mark
weird.
Millar gets it back. So apparently,
he's-
they're rebooting it.
Because he's gonna want it like in his universe, right?
Exactly. It'll be like a Netflix movie.
The Millar-verse. What is the other movie that he did in the Millar-verse?
So I mean, Wanted was technically his. So Mark Millar, has
But he
this
like
thing.
he just signed like a new contract, and they're starting a whole new thing though.
Yeah,
right?
so he signed it with Netflix, and so it was that show with Josh Duhamel was one of them.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Woof.
So the thing that's cool about Mark Millar is that he's also like, he doesn't give a shit. Like he's like unabashedly, he's like, I'm in it for the money. Like, buy my character. You bought the rights to my character. Fucking do it. Because like Wanted is nothing like the graphic novel it's based off of. Kick-Ass is pretty damn close, except for the very end of the movie. But he's just like, I don't care. But now he's got this relationship with Netflix, so he's a little bit more hands-on. But we'll get a new Kick-Ass, and then we'll cover it.
Yeah, we certainly will. And I've been watching. I know I'm forgetting some show that I'm watching. Oh no, I remember. I'm watching Winning Time on HBO. The Lakers. The Rise of
with
Lakers
John C.
dynasty.
Reilly.
So good, man. I'm enjoying that so much. Have you watched any episodes yet?
Not yet. No,
Okay.
I want to, but
We'll
haven't
talk about
got
it
to
more when you start watching it. It's only on the second episode, also, so probably good that we're not spoiling it for anybody.
Yeah, I like to wait until shows like that are done. I can watch like 5 or 6 and just binge it now.
I mean, do whatever you want. I would like to be able to talk to you about it. So if you want to start
See,
watching
things
it,
that like I don't care about spoilers for, like things like The Mandalorian and the Marvel stuff, were like
spoilers.
are
The
things.
Lakers are good.
Exactly. Like this is a real thing. So like I don't care about
Sure.
the spoilers, so I'll wait until I can just watch it at my leisure.
Sure. And then I started watching Tacoma FD from the Broken Lizard guys.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
there
do you know what I'm
go.
talking about?
I do know what you're talking about. I haven't
Have you
watched
seen
it. It's on. Isn't it on like some random
True
streaming site?
TV.
True TV.
Yeah, and like, so it's weird. I went into it like, my first impression was that the guys are cashing in on whatever celebrity they have left, and they're just like making a show. They're paying bills. Cool. No shade. Didn't seem like something I was interested in. And then after a couple seasons, not paying attention to it, someone mentioned that, oh no, it's like Super Troopers. Like if you like Super Troopers, you will like this. And I was like, well, fuck, I love Super Troopers. I even like Club Dread. I know that's like not one of their more talked about movies, but if it's like Super Troopers, I will absolutely give it a shot. And I was open to it, but I just never got around to it. And then the other day I was like, fuck, I'm going to put this thing on. And I was expecting it to be very like sitcom-y, like very mainstream and kind of neutered, like not super gross humor or anything. And it's like pretty fucking gross. They say fuck every episode. I know that with Schitt's Creek that was a thing. There's always one fuck in each episode. And Tacoma FD does the same thing. I think it's like movies, like you get one before your TVMA or something.
Yeah, so it used to be PG-13 got 1 until $1 Million Baby. $1 Million Baby had 2. And then now they're allowed 2, but most movies still adhere to the 1. I think there's only like 10 PG-13 movies that have 2.
Well, at any rate, I think in TV it's a similar thing. Like you get 1 or 2 before you're considered a TVMA versus
Right.
whatever the lower thing is. But yeah, they make use of their fucks. There's a lot of like throwing up and boner jokes. A lot of the classic, Broken Lizard punnery, which is a big favorite of mine. So I've really been enjoying it. It's good. It's just like, it's 22 minutes long. It's a normal TV show. It's a good dinner show.
Yeah. See, I like to have like a short thing like that while I'm eating or doing the dishes or something like that.
I like to have an appetizer for my night's entertainment whether it's a movie or 3 hours of Warzone or whatever.
Exactly. So I always have like 2 half-hour shows that I'm watching. One is one that I'm watching that I know Katrina doesn't care about, and then one that I watch with her before bed. So we'll watch like our heavy show, and then we'll wind down with a softer like sitcom kind of style show.
Totally. That's funny.
So I finished New Girl. I think I mentioned that in the last episode. I enjoyed it. I think it was good enough to keep watching. I don't think it was amazing. Like periodically there'd be an episode where I'd laugh my balls off, but like it was just good enough to keep watching, I'd say. Controversial take. I know New Girl's like really gotten really popular on the internet again, but you know, it's just fine.
It's that whole twee culture that's coming back, man.
Yeah. I started watching 30 Rock again, just as, you know, my little short thing. It's definitely problematic, and it's weird how many things are relevant today. Like, just an episode I watched last night, they were talking about the death of the middle class and how you'll be renting forever. And then like Jack Donaghy talks about punching Putin. So I was just like topical still. Wow. Raised by Wolves, I actually started rewatching again.
I'm curious about that.
I thought that Katrina would love it because she has this thing where she's like, I think she thinks that eventually we're going to get to a point where like, we're going to have 2 cultures, secular culture and then like a religious culture, and they're going to be at odds, and that's essentially what it's about. And it's like 1,000 years in the future, and there's the religious culture and the secular culture, and they're at war.
You just kind of sold me on the show.
What was that?
I like was not sold on the show, and you just sold me on it.
It's fucking bananas and weird. So she's been watching it with and without me, so I watched a bunch of episodes with her, but I haven't watched season 2 yet, so she just finished season 1, so we'll be watching season 2 together going forward. We started that because we started Fringe, and Katrina's favorite show in the world is X-Files.
I love
Fringe. We really wanted to like Fringe. We don't like it.
How far into it did you get?
We got like 10 episodes into the first season.
I know that this is like a thing that people say you've got to
season
get
2 because then it starts getting more serialized. But like Joshua Jackson fucking sucks in that show. He's fucking atrocious.
I mean, you know, listen, I think it's worth pushing through, but
yeah, the other reason I don't like it is the pacing. Like, I love J.J. Abrams, and I like Robert Orci and Alex. No, I can't remember the other guy. But like, they have these grand ideas and these big ideas that they really want to get, but they're trying to cram it into a police procedural show. And
it's like not a police procedural after the first season.
Yeah, because it's just like it's like everything is like a 1930s talkie. Like, we need to go to Boston. We need to go to Boston right now. We need to go to my lab. And it's just like they're like rapping everything they say. It's so fast and it's off-putting.
So Scarlett and I started watching Buffy this year. So that's like her favorite show, and I was like very on the fence about it, and my fears were confirmed as we started the show, because it was like it's like a procedural, you know, it's like Monster of the Week and Teen Girl fights him, and I was like, okay, this like doesn't appeal to me. And after a little bit of after a few episodes, it like really finds its footing, and it becomes less and less procedural, less Monster of the Week. You get more into the lore, but also the show clearly starts caring more about the lore.
Right.
And I think that Fringe really does that too.
Yeah, that's what I hear.
It definitely has, it has like big ideas, and it gets to them.
Maybe we'll do a palate cleanser and go back to it. But yeah, we really tried. Like, we gave it the college try. But normally when we get into a show, like, we'll watch at least an episode every night, if not 2. Yeah. And we would go like a day or 2 without, like, there was just no draw for us to come back. And we actually tried watching it like 5 years ago. It used to be on like Hulu, and then we started it, and then it fell off of Hulu when we got like 3 episodes in. We're like, oh shit, and now it's on HBO Max. We're like, well, we better give it a shot before it disappears again. But Raised by Wolves is good. I finished season 2 of The Witcher, another one that, like, I loved season 1, but for whatever reason this season of The Witcher really didn't just grab me. So I'd watch like 2 episodes, take like 2 or 3 weeks off, watch another 2 episodes, 2 or 3 weeks off. But I finally finished it, and it finished strong. But the first 6 episodes were like, is this going to go anywhere? Like, where is this going? And then it finally, like, oh shit. So I am looking forward to that, another season of that. I watched Batman 89 because we came back with Ruin My Childhood. We announced the last episode that we're going to, but that episode's out. Watched I Love You, Man again, because it's just a great, like, romantic comedy / buddy comedy. It's just an easy movie. And then on the airplane, I'm actually in Long Island right now for a work function, and I saw that all the Batman movies that Joel Schumacher and Tim Burton ones are on there. So I started watching Batman Forever, and was actually interested in it. I'm like, but I should probably sleep because I was on a red-eye flight. So I left at like 11 p.m. in Los Angeles and arrived at 7 a.m. So I'm like, I should sleep. So I only watched like 20 minutes of it, but I'll probably like turn that on tonight and watch that as I go to sleep because it's on the Hulus. But yeah,
if you feel like punishing yourself, you can watch Batman and Robin.
I actually think it's a fun movie. It's objectively bad, but it's like The Room, like the pun. Arnold Schwarzenegger's ice puns alone are worth watching like every 5 years.
What killed the dinosaurs? The Ice Age. We didn't talk about Robin's place in the Batman universe, did we?
There are a couple things that we brought up, and actually this is a perfect segue. Honorable mentions. The Batman was one of my honorable mentions, and I didn't say it just because it's so new that I didn't want to put it on my favorite just because it's so new.
See, I guess that's not the first thing that I would think of with a remake. The big superhero franchises are tricky to like call remakes to me.
But we also cover reboots, bud.
I know. I'm just like, I'm just talking about where my head first goes.
Yeah.
I'm also like open to talk about whatever.
I think we did briefly talk about Robin. It's just, which way do you go? And Robert Pattinson has talked about it since, saying like, if they do Robin, he wants to like do a legit Robin and go to like a 12, 13-year-old kid and not do the Chris O'Donnell route with a 30-year-old man.
I feel like if the Batman does Robin too, I want to see the Joker kill him.
Yeah.
I also like, I don't know how you fit in all of the things that Matt Reeves has talked about and the things that I think fans really want to see. Like Matt Reeves hasn't really talked about Robin, I don't think. I don't know how you fit all of that stuff into 3 movies. And I also don't see Pattinson doing more than 3.
Right. I don't see that either. So what I can see happening is if they do bring him in, this is what I think they would have to do. Maybe bring him in as the second movie and have him have this like guilt where it's like, I see this young man who's going through the same thing as I did. His parents were just killed. I see the anger in him. Like maybe I can try to help him and give him a purpose, but prevent him from doing what I was doing my first 2 years where I was just beating the shit out of criminals. Maybe I can help him be a beacon of hope. So I think that's the route that you'd have to go. What, does he adopt him? I don't know. Maybe he gives him an internship.
Batman is also like 28 in this movie or something.
Yeah, they don't actually say how old he, because Robert Pattinson is in his mid-30s, so it's like,
right.
It's pretty ambiguous.
He's young though, like he's young for a single man to adopt a young boy. You know what I mean?
Right. So maybe if they do what they did in the MCU and make him like Robin is a intern at Wayne Enterprises, and that's how they get around it. You
know what solves the problem? We just do 7 of these fucking Batman movies.
Yeah,
that's what I want. I want like a Harry Potter length epic.
That would be great. God, there was another thing that we didn't talk about that I was just thinking about. I wanted to notate it down and I didn't. God, Batman. What was it? I can't remember what I wanted to bring up. I feel like we could do a whole nother episode on the Batman. I remember after we were done recording, there were so many things. I'm like, fuck, I wanted to say this. Fuck, I wanted to say that.
I'll tell you what, I want to see it again. So if you want to do another Batman episode sometime in March or I guess April, I
want to see it again too.
Oh, well, actually, maybe we should wait until it's on HBO.
Yeah.
Because it'll be like people will be hashtagging Batman again and shit.
Yeah, totally fine. Okay. Give me one of your honorable mentions, man.
Yeah, The Departed.
Yeah, that's such a good one. I had a blast talking about that one with you and Infernal Affairs and our figure it out if it was internal or Infernal Affairs.
I felt bad putting it on the main list because I think that Infernal Affairs is the preferred movie for a lot of people and not for me, Didn't enjoy that movie a ton. It was fine, but I think Departed is like far and away a better movie. But I felt like it was a little bit too controversial, so I didn't want to put it on the main list.
Interesting. I think a lot of people put The Departed on their list. But no, I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, what are we going to say about Departed that hasn't
been said that we didn't already say?
If you want to figure out what we did say about it, go back and listen to our episode on The Departed.
The other one I had is another one of these things where it's just a little too recent, a little too new, and also like they went a different approach. But Dune, obviously, everybody knows how much I love Dune. That was my most anticipated movie for the last like 10 years.
Yep.
But they also, I give it a little Barry Bonds asterisk because it didn't do it in one movie. It did it in two. It's going to do it in two movies.
That's
so
exactly why it's not on my list.
Yeah. But like, I love that movie. I've watched it twice since it came out on Blu-ray, and I saw it 3 times. Oh, I saw it twice in a regular theater, and then I got to go to a special screening on Warner Brothers lot. So I've seen it like 5 or 6 times, and it came out in October. So love the movie, but
yeah, I feel like as much as we sort of stretch the remake thing to reboots and stuff too, I feel like it doesn't count if it's half a movie. And maybe in 2 or 3 years when the second one comes out, then we can say the 2 Dunes are better than the David Lynch one. But yeah, it feels weird saying it's better when there's only half of it out.
Exactly. He might not stick the landing. I have 100% certainty he will. But what if he doesn't?
Yeah. We'll revisit this when it comes out. And Denise, welcome on the podcast to talk to us about
anytime.
it. Yeah. Captain America was one of mine.
The first Avenger?
The first Avenger, because it's like we said, like superheroes. I don't know. Does it count? Does it not count? But there's a Captain America that came out in. There's 2, right? There's one in the 70s and
there's one in the
80s.
70s that we covered, and there's another one in the 90s played by
early 90s
by the guy who wrote Catcher in the Rye. Son plays Captain America in the 90s
I didn't know
version.
That was hilarious. Salinger.
Yeah, J.D. Salinger's son.
Yeah, Billy Salinger.
Salinger Jr.
Yeah,
Lil Salinger. I like Lil Salinger.
Yeah, I like Lil Sal. He's like a rapper.
Yeah, there we go.
Did I talk about Dave, by the way? I watched
Dave. Yeah, the last episode. Dave is so good.
It's so good. Yeah, Captain America. Like, I think First Avenger is top tier comic book movie, just bar none. Top 10 if not top 5. And as far as being a remake, like, it just blows the other 2 versions out of the water.
I think the 3 Captain America movies are is the best trilogy in the MCU.
Yeah, who else has a trilogy? Iron Man,
Spider-Man.
Oh, I might prefer Spider-Man.
You would think I would, but I do like. Do I go back and watch Spider-Man more often? Yes, because I'm a Spider-Man guy. But I think if you look at the movies as like actual movies and not just pulling on nostalgia like the newer one, Winter Soldier. I think Winter Soldier is the best made Marvel movie.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I think that Civil War, as much fun as it is, as much as rewatchable as it is, it feels like an Avengers movie.
Yeah, that's fair.
But, No Way Home does too, kind of. So
exactly.
Do you have another one? I have one more.
I think
we have the same. Okay, I think we have the same one.
So I'm going to actually list 2 of them as one because and we actually talked about one of these already in passing, but 3:10 to Yuma and Magnificent Seven.
Nice.
Not the new Magnificent Seven, the original one from like the 60s. The reason I didn't put these on is I knew True Grit was going to be my number 1, and I didn't really want to have 3 Westerns.
Because you're not even a Western guy.
Yeah, and I'm not even a Western guy, but that's like my point. Like, Magnificent Seven is such a fantastic movie and an amazing Western, but it's also a remake of a Japanese movie, Seven Samurai, which is also in its own one of the greatest movies ever made. And the fact that they were able to take arguably one of the greatest movies ever made, change it and make it for an American audience into a Western, which at that time, Westerns were the superhero movies of the time. That was the MCU, were Western movies. And not only do that, but stick the landing and have it be a movie that's stood the test of time for generations is incredible. So that one, and then 3:10 to Yuma, just a fantastic movie. But
I love the idea, because this is what Departed did too, right? I love the idea of taking a movie from another country and not just remaking it, but reinterpreting it for American audiences, or vice versa, whatever.
Exactly.
And I think they wanted to do that with The Raid too, and that movie just never came to fruition.
Yeah, Joe Carnahan was supposed to do it with I can't think of his name right now, but he played Crossbones in the MCU. Frank Grillo.
Oh, Frank Grillo.
And
I think Liam Hemsworth was going to do it at one point.
Yeah, well, at one point it was going to be him and Liam Hemsworth, and then it was going to be the Hemsworth brothers. Then it went back to Frank Grillo, and then they ended up doing that movie where it was like a Groundhog Days loop thing with Mel Gibson. But apparently somebody else bought the rights to The Raid, and so it's going through the pre-production development again.
Yeah, we'll see. I feel like too much time has passed. I wish they had just done Raid 3.
Yeah.
But at this point, it feels like it's going to be a watered-down version. At any rate,
one more, but I'm going to let you go.
I think it's the same one.
Let's see. On three.
On three, yeah.
One,
One, two,
three. Dread.
Mortal Kombat.
No, mine was Dread, but
Dread's pretty good.
yeah. The new
Speaking
Mortal
of
Kombat is a fucking fun movie, though.
I mean, I think that, the original one's pretty fun. I think that the new one definitely improves on it. But the new one's also like not a fantastic movie. It's just
It's not a good movie, but it's just fun.
It's a blast if you like those games.
Yeah. Yeah. That's all on my list.
Yeah.
I can come up. Oh, no, I had Spiderman Homecoming on there, but it's the same thing as like the Captain America thing. Like, fantastic movie, reinterpreting the character, but it really is just banking on the fact that it's part of the MCU. Like, would that movie have been as popular if it wasn't part of the MCU?
Yeah, and also like Sam Raimi's Spider-Man. Are you considering a remake of that or of like the 77?
It'd just be a reboot kind of thing. So it'd just be like the same thing as like talking about the Batman. Like,
yeah, I feel like these superhero ones are so hard to talk about.
yeah. Now, granted, I think the Batman is the fact that you can even that you and I are even comparing it to the Dark Knight. I think if I had to say, I think the Batman was close to being on my top three, but it was just because it was so new that I didn't put it on there.
2 points about Batman, and then we'll stop talking about Batman. The movie to compare it to is Batman Begins, not Dark Knight, because it's the beginning of a trilogy.
Right.
Also,
we compared it to the second movie in the Tim Burton verse.
Yeah, well, we were having fun, and it's got the same characters or whatever, but like realistically, it makes more sense to compare it to Batman 89 or Batman Begins. And that leads me to my second point, which is Batman is so fucking cool, man. Like 89, Batman Begins, and The Batman are 3 of my favorite superhero movies, period. And like, obviously I'm just a Batman fan, but those are also like, I don't know,
legitimately good movies.
3 of the best superhero movies that we've got.
Yeah.
Love those
movies. It's just, the only reason I didn't bring up The Batman as one of my top 3s, once again, is just, it's so new. And I'm looking at it with the rose tinted glasses. Like, am I going to feel the same way? 10 years from now.
I watched a couple reviews of The Batman that made some good points, and I felt myself being like, you know what? Fuck off. I had fun with it. But also I recognize that you made some good points. So I want to like reserve my, my star rating for a month from now or so.
And I agree. Cause like, I think Dark Knight gets all these accolades, and it's considered not only just the greatest superhero movie or one of the greatest superhero movies, but it's also considered one of the greatest movies ever made as well. Mm-hmm. But like, there are some things that I've noticed in that movie over my dozens of watches in the last 10 years for that movie, that I've noticed. I'm like, it's not a perfectly made film. Like, there are issues in the movie. I think Batman Begins is just as good as Dark Knight. I think Dark Knight, just Heath Ledger's performance alone kind of carries it and gives that reputation that it has. But I think if you had a lesser actor as the Joker, or even if maybe Heath Ledger was still alive, would that movie still have the same?
I think about the Heath Ledger still being alive thing a lot.
Yeah. And like, the performance is incredible, don't get me wrong, but I think the fact, and a lot of us were led to believe at the time that Heath Ledger was in a dark place because of this role and everything. And then it's like, over the years since, we've like, crew members and cast members were like, nah, that shit's bullshit. Like, Heath Ledger was a blast. He was doing skateboard tricks on set. Yeah. And so it's like, I think a lot of those urban legends around him being like dark and brooding made that movie so much better. No, it's still a fucking incredible movie, but I do think if whenever I go back to the Nolanverse now, I go back to Batman Begins.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I think that's a common phenomenon amongst movies and music for the most part, but any art form. Like, if somebody dies immediately after making something incredible, it absolutely adds to the emotional connection that fans have with that piece of art. You know, Kurt Cobain's the same way. Like, we cannot conceive of a world where Kurt is still alive and we talk about Nevermind in Utero. There's just, you can't do it.
I agree. Because like, I saw this article in Rolling Stones, God, this must have been 10 years ago, where Kurt Cobain was listed as the #1 vocalist of all time. And like, I don't agree with that. Like, was he influential? Absolutely. Yeah. Was he gone too soon? Duh.
Was he
But
incredible? Yes.
Was he? Yeah, but is he the best
Right.
lyricist and vocalist of all time? No, some of his lyrics really don't make sense, and his vocals they're good for what it is. It's grunge, but like, you're not going to have him record a Christmas album and be like, God damn, listen to that voice.
I mean, yeah. I don't know if that's how I would approach that argument, but I take your point.
I mean, like there's certain people where you go and like they just have a voice that's timeless, and like I don't necessarily think Kurt Cobain is that his voice is timeless because obviously we still are listening to Nirvana, but part of that's because he passed.
Yeah, I think that artists' death add to their legends for sure, and it colors how we remember things.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this was a good episode. I had a blast talking about. We talked about like 10 movies, which is pretty good. Normally we go into an hour and a half talking about 2. So
yeah,
talking about 6 to 10 movies and still being under an hour, I'm proud of us, man.
Yeah, we did good.
Yeah. Once again, everyone, thank you guys for listening. We are incredibly blessed. We know how lucky we are to be able to just do this for fun. So thank you guys for listening. Alex, give us your plugs where our listeners can find you and whatnot.
I'm on TikTok, Twitter, Letterboxd, at Pulisci, Pulisci, and Instagram at Dyslexic, DysAlexIC.
And what about your Etsy shop, man?
Oh, yeah. I've also got a bunch of cool stuff on Etsy. If you're into film and TV, I assume that's why you're listening to this, or like elder emo, rock and roll, whatever kind of stuff. You can find that at Burn the Scene Boutique on Etsy.com. And
isn't there like a special discount or something for our listeners?
Etsy.com. Like people don't know what Etsy is. It's not Etsy.ru. Like, of course it's .com. Yeah, if you use the code Remake Rewind, that'll get you some sort of percentage off.
All one word.
All one word.
But that's all linked in our all of his socials, as well as the a link to his shop is in the episode description. It was in our last episode's description as well for the shop when he announced that discount code. But you guys can follow everything that's MDXpods related at MDXpods.com, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all at MDXpods. If you want to support the show, you can go to patreon.com/MDXpods, get early access, bonus episodes, certain tiers. If you pledge $15 a month, we'll actually give you an autographed Blu-ray of one of the movies that we've covered. Autographed by us, not autographed by anybody important.
We're not hunting down Christian Bale.
But it's that. But once again, thank you all for listening. We really appreciate it. And
have a great day.
Yeah.
Wherever you are.
Yeah. Bye now.